Hello friends, welcome back to Love English with Sil. Today I am here with the last and final episode of our video lecture series on the social history of England. This is the part 10. Okay, if you haven't watched my previous videos, please do watch it. It is still there in my playlist, Social History of England. Okay, today we are going to see the period from the Queen Elizabeth II onwards. Okay, she is still our monarch, still the British monarch. So in today's video, we are going to watch what all changes have happened during her reign. Okay, so let's get started. We can see after the two world wars, the global political scenario has changed a lot. The reflections of it was visible, very much visible in the British political and social history as well. We can see Queen Elizabeth II came into the throne in the year 1952. Before going into her reign and the social changes that happened, let's have a brief introduction regarding her life. Okay, we can see Elizabeth II was born in Mayfair, London on 21st April 1926. She is the eldest daughter of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Elizabeth II is the current monarch of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and of many other independent nations too. She became queen on 6th February 1952. Here's a picture of our queen. We can see Queen Elizabeth was 13 years old when World War II broke out. That was in 1939. In 1945, in the year in which the World War II came to an end. At that time, Princess Elizabeth joined the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service. She was the first and so far only female member of the royal family actually to serve in the military. Queen Elizabeth made her first official visit overseas in 1947 when she went with her parents to South Africa. So that was her first official visit overseas, abroad. Okay. On her 21st birthday, she made a broadcast to the British Commonwealth and Empire pledging to devote her life to the service of her people, to the service of the people of the Commonwealth and Empire. So she devoted her life for the service of her people. Here is yet another picture that's actually a collage. Elizabeth married the Duke of Edinburgh on 20th November 1947. The Duke of Edinburgh's name is Philip. Okay. After their wedding, Philip and Elizabeth took up residence at Clarence House in London. But at various times between 1946 and in 1953, the Duke of Edinburgh was stationed in Malta as a serving Royal Navy officer. Alas, he is no more. Prince Philip has passed away on 9th April 2021. We can see on 14th November 1948, Elizabeth gave birth to her first child, that is Prince Charles. Later they had three other children, Anne, Andrew and Edward. So these are her personal details. Here we can go to the reign of Queen Elizabeth. We can see King George's health declined during 1951 and Elizabeth frequently stood in for him at private and public events. In January 1952, Elizabeth and Philip set out for a tour of Australia and New Zealand. When they reached Kenya, there came a sad news for them. At that time, her father has passed away on 6th February 1952. Here is another picture of the Queen. We can see just after her father's demise, she took charge as the monarch, as the next monarch. After the coronation ceremony, Elizabeth and Philip moved to Buckingham Palace in central London. At that time, people had a lot of expectations over her, and there was much talk of a new Elizabethan period or new Elizabethan age. As nations have developed economically and in literacy, Queen Elizabeth has witnessed a gradual transformation of the British Empire into its modern successor, the Commonwealth. She has worked hard to maintain links with former British possessions such as South Africa and India. Queen Elizabeth has become the most widely travelled head of the state in history and has visited many Commonwealth and non-Commonwealth countries all across the globe. Okay, here are two pictures of the Queen and Prince Philip. You can see we are going to see her role and the social changes that happened. 1950s was known as swinging 60s. 1960s is known as swinging 60s. So that was the period of youth culture, and it was one of the biggest and defining aspect of 1960s. Actually, it was remarkable as the music of the period made an impact on the people, on the society. We can see the emergence of British invasion groups like the Beatles. They were very much renowned, very much celebrated, the group called the Beatles. That music truly began its revolutionary changes from by the arrival of these groups, by the emergence of these groups. Also, we can see the experimentations from the part of the Beach Boys and the Rolling Stones. So please keep these three names in your mind. The first one is the Beatles, and the second one is the Beach Boys, and the third one is the Rolling Stones. So these bands or these groups experimented with new sounds and developed innovative pieces of music, and that was a great contribution as far as the 1960s or the swinging 60s were concerned. So people tried to assert their own identity through their music, culture, and art. Young people began to stand up for their beliefs and their individuality. They tried to assert their own identity. During this period, a lot of colleges and universities were established, and that is why higher education got accelerated. Also, we can see many recreational drugs were also synonymous with the 60s. Images of the Woodstock Festival show people high on marijuana and LSD. That is, this period was known as a period of drugs as well, recreational drugs as well. So we can see the emergence of the hippie movement, and they came up with a lot of psychedelic artistic works and films. So yet another important aspect is that feminism began to become a more influential ideology as more jobs became available to young women in the 60s. The important changes were the contraceptive pill became legalized for all women in 1967, and it gave them opportunity to broaden careers far beyond motherhood and marriage. So when we consider a woman's life, it is said that her pregnancy and her marital life is far more superior than her career. So it is not just like that. Women came and stand up, and they stood up for their equal opportunities and their career, and they try to give more and more contributions towards the working class society. We can see the Women's Liberty Movement of 1968 and Equal Pay Act of 1970 were remarkable changes during this period. In 1968, we can see the emergence of Barbara Castle as the first and only woman to be appointed First Secretary of State, and women began finding a voice in society and running of the country. So women assumed to have power in the key positions of the society. So we can see the emergence of feminist movements during this period, and we can see a lot of technological advancements, and especially urban motorways, bulldozers, skyscrapers. Also, we can see the increase in employment in factories and increase in money. These two aspects allowed people to spend more on leisure activities. Their spending capacity increased, and they could spend it on their leisure activities. They could choose from their a range of activities that were provided for them. Also, it was an era of color television and pocket transistor radios. These two allowed people to spend their free time listening to music and watching TV, and to engage in their own pleasure activities. The microwave oven shortened the amount of time women spent in the kitchen, further allowing them more freedom and time to enjoy themselves. So that was a path-breaking change. By the end of the decade, Neil Armstrong achieved the impossible by becoming the first man on the moon in 1969. As I have mentioned, that was a giant leap for the humanity. So during the 60s itself, we can see people began to involve in the environmental preservation, and they try to think about the pollution, and the ecological concerns were really high. So that was the period when people began to think about environment and environmental conservation, and we can see the impact of it in our society as well. So that was 1960s, and now we can see 1970s. In popular recollection, the 1970s have gone down as the Dark Ages, Britain's gloomiest period since the Second World War. After the Second World War, we can see this period of 1970s were a dark age, as Britain's finances spiraled downward and the nation found itself suppliant to the International Monetary Fund. So during this period, Britain had to borrow a lot from IMF. Okay, it was a decade of strikes, especially of postal workers, miners, and dustmen. So this particular decade ended with the winter of discontent in 1979. It was in this decade itself, in the year 1977, the whole nation celebrated the Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee with street parties. So that was also happened in this period. The first big sound of the 1970s was glam rock. That was a musical band. The main figures of this were David Bowie, Elton John, of course me, Gary Glitter. Okay. So here comes a very powerful lady, a very powerful leader, that is Margaret Thatcher. She was a British Conservative Party politician and she became Prime Minister in the year 1979, and she continued to be the Prime Minister till 1990. She had made a lot of records in relation with her assumption as a Prime Minister. That is, she came to be Europe's first woman Prime Minister, and she accelerated the evolution of the British economy from authoritarian statism to liberalism. That was a kind of an economic revival. So, as we all know, the economy of England or economy of Britain was going down, right? So here Margaret Thatcher came with a lot of economic policies that could revive the economic acceleration. Okay, so that was an economic revival, and she made another diplomatic mission. That is, she decided to make no public conflict with USA, and her diplomatic relationships got strengthened. The diplomatic relationship of Britain with other countries all across the world got strengthened. During this period itself, we can see an inclination towards Eastern mysticism occurred. So that was a sudden shift towards Orientalism. That is, people began to look upon Eastern ideals and Eastern religions as a source of their imagination or their final destination as well. So people began to look upon Eastern mysticism and Eastern religions, and they tried to find a solace in the lap of Orientalism. During this period, we can see the emergence of Irish Republican Army that stood for the freedom or the independence of Ireland, and there was a lot of civil unrest and there were a lot of movements were going on. And this was also a period of computers and cheap calculators. These two were flooding the market during this period. And yeah, of course, in this period, we have the world's first test tube baby that was born in England. That was really a commendable achievement, really, right? In 1978, the world's first test tube baby was born in England. We have to remember something, that is, the world itself was going under a lot of changes, and we can see a global energy crisis was happening. And during this time, England also struggled a lot to get a grip in her economic activities, because energy or the fuel itself is the basis of so many industrial developments, right? So it was a period of global energy crisis, and of course Britain had to face a lot of struggle. So that is why, so all these aspects contributed to make this decade a decade of disillusionment. And in 1980s, we can see the inflation and unemployment were still continuing in the country, and there was a minor strike in the year 1984-85. During this period, Margaret Thatcher adopted a new policy that is known as privatization, and she encouraged property ownership. And as we mentioned earlier, from 1960s onwards, people began to be involved in the environmental preservation and conservation. So in the 1980s, these movements regarding environmental preservation got accelerated a lot. By the influence of Thatcher, the tension between USSR and USA got reduced, and we can see just after the World War II, there was a kind of Cold War between these two extreme countries, that were USA and USSR. And Margaret Thatcher, when she was there in the power, she tried to reduce the tension between these two nations, and that came to be known as the end of Cold War. Okay. Here is a very good news during this period of 1981. That was the marriage of Prince Charles with Lady Diana Spencer. It was a much celebrated wedding. Televisions made premieres, and there was a lot of millions and millions of viewers were there for their marriage ceremony, and that was occurred on 30th July 1981. In the year 1982, people witnessed the Falklands War between Britain and Argentina. I really wish to include more details regarding Falkland Wars, but it may be a little bit lengthy, so that is why I'm skipping it. If you want to know more about Falklands War, you can just Google it. It's there. It's there on the internet. You can just read and understand it. In the 1982, the world witnessed the Falklands War between Britain and Argentina, and the conflict lasted 74 days, and it took a lot of lives. In the 1980s, it was definitely it's an era of technological advancements. Apple home computers and Sinclair computers came into existence. Also, we can see the weakened power and influence of the trade unions that were stood for the workers or the working class people. So, the influence of the government resulted in the weakened power of trade unions. We can see in the 1990s of Britain, it was known as an age of excitement, possibility, and chaos. It saw a rise of multiculturalism as well. During this period, the poll tax was introduced in Scotland in 1989 and in England and Wales in the year 1990. When implementation reached the UK, large-scale protests and riots from the part of people occurred in London, and Conservative MPs expelled Thatcher as party leader, and they replaced her with John Major, and he was the next Prime Minister of Britain. Britain joined US-led forces to liberate Kuwait during the Kuwait War, and it was in the year 1991, and in 1995, American President Bill Clinton visited Northern Ireland to help the peace process in Britain. Okay. Britain drew closer to Europe with the Channel Tunnel opening in the year 1995. As we all know, Britain was actually separated from the continental terrain of Europe because of the presence of English Channel. And we can see now Britain drew closer to Europe with the inauguration of Channel Tunnel, that was an underpassage during the year 1995. After more than 150 years of British rule, Hong Kong was returned to Chinese control. So that was a kind of decolonization process that was happening in Hong Kong. And in the year 1997, alas, here is a sad news. That is, the world mourned the shocking news that Lady Diana Spencer, Princess of Wales, she has passed away in a tragic accident. She had tragically died in a car crash in France. So that was really a shocking news for all across the people, all across the globe. We can see in the field of technology, we can see the upgraded versions of our desktops to laptops, and we can see the fight between Windows and Apple Macintosh. Designer babies emerged and the first gene therapy trials began. So these were the major achievements in the field of science and technology. Yeah, that was the major happenings during her reign. And in the year 2002, Queen Elizabeth II celebrated her Golden Jubilee, marking the 50th anniversary of her accession to the throne. Then in 2012, she celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, marking the 60th anniversary of her accession to the throne. And in the upcoming year, in the year 2022, she is planning to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee. So I have included the very important aspects that were happened during her period, and I think there are a lot more to include. As I have to limit my video, I'm not including all those information. You can just read and understand it from the internet and from other reference books. Okay, next, let's have a look into the future monarchs. So that was Queen Elizabeth II for you, and now we are going to see the future monarchs. The first one is Prince Charles. Prince Charles, who was born at Buckingham Palace on 14th November 1948, is the eldest son of Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. He is the heir to the throne of the United Kingdom. The Prince of Wales is known for his extensive charity work, particularly for the Prince's Trust. He was really interested in people's activities and their charity activities. Prince of Wales is well known for his extensive charity work, particularly for the Prince's Trust. Yes. He also carries out a full schedule of royal duties and increasingly is taking on more royal roles from his aging mother, Queen Elizabeth II. The prince is also well known for his high-profile marriages to the late Lady Diana Spencer, and subsequently to Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall. So that was also a very controversial marriage. Yeah, okay, then here is a picture. Here is another picture with Lady Diana Spencer. Yeah, okay. Then we have Prince William of Wales. Prince William of Wales was born at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington on 21st June 1982. His parents are Charles, Prince of Wales, and Lady Diana Spencer. He is second in the line of succession to the British throne, because just after Queen Elizabeth II, we have Prince Charles. Then only we can have Prince William. Okay, so that is why he's second in the line of succession to the British throne. In April 2011, he married Kate Middleton. Here is the picture of their beautiful family. So that was Queen Elizabeth II and her future monarchs. So I think this video was informative for you. I think you enjoyed it. If you have liked my video, please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. If you have any queries and feedback, please do comment it in the comment box. So have a nice day. Please do watch my videos regularly and please do support. So thank you very much. Signing off. Bye.